Welcome to the Irish Snug podcast. Welcome back to the Irish Snug. Today I am joined with Killian O'Mahony, better known as Killian the Cooper. When Killian began his apprenticeship in 2013, he was Ireland's first apprentice cooper in roughly 40 years. Today, through his family cooperage, he is helping revive the almost lost tradition of household coopering, creating everything from whiskey casks and tankards to butter churns using centuries-old techniques. Whether you're interested in Irish heritage and culture, whiskey, woodworking, traditional crafts, or the stories behind handmade objects, this conversation has something for you. Killian, welcome to the Irish Snug.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thanks for that introduction, man. That kind of made things a lot more real, things that me and my family have been working towards and thinking about for I suppose a decade and a half. You kind of wrapped it up there nicely, that this is where we are. This is the Irish craft revival of coopering and household coopering, and we get to play a big part in that, you know.
That's great.
So thanks for that, man. Man, you're doing some job, because what I've listened to over the last couple of weeks between David Cahan, the Shillelaghs, stick fighting with Nathan and all that crack, I'm learning more about my own culture through your podcast with the guests you're having on. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing, man. It's cool.
I appreciate that. So for someone discovering you for the first time, who is Killian O'Mahony? What exactly does a cooper do? Where are you from? Give us the rundown.
Absolutely. I'm from Cork. My name is Killian O'Mahony. I was born and raised in Cork in Ireland. I've been into, I suppose, woodworking and making things with my hands my whole life. So I left school as early as I possibly legally could, you know, to go work with my hands and go into the trades. So I actually went more towards kind of carpentry and anything to do with wood. I always would have been making kind of bows and arrows when I was a young fella, so it was always the interest of making things out of wood. Went into carpentry, cabinet making, then furniture restoration and design. But while I was at college, I got an opportunity for a coopering apprenticeship. As he said, it was the first apprenticeship in Ireland in 40 years. That was through Irish Distillers. And as soon as I got hired by them, I started travelling and basically reclaiming the skills that have been lost in the country, and going to different countries around the world to bring that skill base back into the country. I suppose when I started, I'll be very honest, 15 years ago, I didn't know what a cooper was. I had to probably Google what's a cooper at the time when I was going for the job. And that's when I really started learning and diving deep into it, and I suppose the history of coopering and what it is. And I suppose a quick summary would be coopering is a trade where it's not just barrel making, but it's making of wooden vessels and containers. I suppose the old world, and going just 100 years ago back to any time before that, every single person would have recognised a wooden vessel, a tankard, a churn, a pail, a barrel churn, and different sizes of casks and stuff. But over the last 100 years, we've lost quite a bit of heritage and craft, and I suppose the mother of invention decimated a lot of that. So I suppose in the last 13 years, I have seen coopering itself in Ireland go from myself as the first apprentice in 40 years to today in 2026 we have 12 lads on benches across the country repairing barrels for distilleries and craft breweries around the country and beyond. So I suppose I've seen that in just the 13 years of my career as a cooper with distilleries, and because that has happened and the revival is happening in that manner, it means that me and my family have the opportunity to focus on another faction of coopering, which is household coopering, which is more of your tankards, pails, churns, wash tubs and stuff like that. So we get to focus and lean into that, and we're really doing our best to bring back the history, the heritage, the techniques, the craft, and just the understanding of traditional vessels in the modern world, really, you know.
Say 100 years ago, how many different types of vessels and things that were made by coopers, how many would you find in a typical household?
Oh, like it's most common everyday vessels, like up to the mid 1800s. There was apparently 11,000 coopers in Ireland. 11,000 lads swinging a hammer every day, making all sorts of vessels. So there was a couple of factions of coopering. Wet coopering, which would be what we know now mainly, which is for distilleries, wineries, There was dry coopering, which would have been containing dry goods in a vessel, like for transport, apples, flour, nails, gunpowder, even in some cases. So you had to have each faction dealing with each type of coopering. Brewery coopering is also its own faction because you're dealing with compressed, I suppose, highly carbonate pressurized liquids, or your staves are thicker, you use brass bushings. There's these little intricacies between the trade. But household coopering, or what was called then white coopering, is the making of all types of vessels for the household. So like I have a plunge churn back here, which is literally going up and down inside the vessel to churn butter. You have miniature casks, miniature barrels for all types of stuff. I have a couple of vessels up here for 1 litre tankards, literally just drinking vessels. But you would have had traditions in Ireland where there was a thing called a newlywed couple docket, where you would go down to the local family cooperage and you would hand in the newlywed docket, and the cooperage would make the newlyweds they'd have 2 noggins, 2 gills, which are small little vessels, dairy vessels for scooping milk and stuff like that. You would have had a 8 litre or under a 10 litre plunge, it's kind of domestic size. You would have had a wash tub, and everything, because we're very used to a world, Tim, of like obviously plastics and glass and cellophane and Tupperware, but we're used to a world where we have fork trucks, where we have pallets, where we have shipping containers, where we can box things up and lift extraordinary weight and put it on a ship and send it across, whereas coopering was created out of necessity, the need to hold things, the need to transport things. If you know the clay amphoras that you would have seen in Rome, they're big clay pots. They were literally the only technology that was there before for carrying mass volume of things. So just to dive deeper into the history of it, and sorry I'm rambling on, but when Rome invaded Gaul in France, what we know as France today, they discovered Celtic tribes that were actually creating and binding staves together using hazel hoops. So if you recognise the barrel, you see each individual piece of wood is a stave, and the hoops around it are these pieces of metal here. But traditionally, they were actually wooden hoops as well. So when Rome invaded Gaul, found the Celts making these casks, 250 litre traditional hogshead styles, that's when coopering technology was really taken on and spread across the world. It was the Roman Empire now being able to move massive amounts of liquid, wine, beer, water, whatever they needed to their armours, to their people to grow the empire. So that's really what blew it up. And then obviously the necessity to transport stuff around the world. You could then roll it onto a cart, over onto a ship, and ship that to another country or another continent. So it was really the backbone of trade and, I suppose, human evolution and civilization in a way.
Do you think that, in the world we live in today, where people are starting to worry about even drinking things out of plastic, and just moving into a greener technology, do you think people is your coopering trade increasing now because of that?
Do you know what? It's such a note that I didn't even think about until we really started, or after we started the family business, because everything here that we're doing is truly about the trade and bringing back the vessels. I have a couple of things that I can show you of the restorations that we're getting to do now, and bringing these vessels that are in dairy farms and houses in the back of pubs back to life and back into service, But what I am 100% seeing is the more closer we get to a technological advancement with AI or whatever that looks like, the more people are actually leaning towards made by human hands, and actually experiences that are bringing them closer to their food. So like when I started this business, which is O'Mahony Craft Cooperage, our main focus is miniature barrels and tankards. And the idea behind that is to be able to give an example here. So these are our brass 2 litre American oak casks. And the idea behind this was to find a way of bringing traditional vessels back into the modern home, not just for visual purposes and something nice to look at, but I've always been about form and function. So the form, the beautiful piece to look at that represents the history of the oak, the history of the wood and the cask that it came from, but the function of being able to mature your own wine or your own whiskey or your own rum at home. And it brings you closer to developing your own favourite profile, finding out what you like, being able to sample it every day and seeing the effect that the wood itself has on that liquid. And I thought the same with the tankards, to the point that the tankards that we make, like the inside of them are charred, but that's actually the char the original char from the barrel stave. So we buy whiskey barrels from distilleries across the country and a couple abroad. We knock them, we take these staves out. I don't know if you can see the tide line, which is where the whiskey has soaked into the stave.
Yes.
That's what we're looking for. So we're actually preserving this part of the stave and making multiple staves out of it. So the inside of the tankard is basically the inside layer of a whiskey barrel.
Interesting.
So
I have a question on that. So I've visited a few whiskey distilleries in Ireland. I actually am a barrel owner at the Crawley Distillery up in Donegal.
Cool.
I'm going to take delivery on that in like a year and a half.
Superb.
But that's another story. I don't know how I'm taking delivery. I don't know how I'm going to.
That's going to be a big day.
Yeah. I'm going to have to store some bottles at my family's house over there. I'm not going to be able to get it back to the States.
I'm sure you'll have some takers there, no problem.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But so I visited the Midleton Distillery recently when I was in Cork, and we did like a little tour there, and they taught you about how they show you how the barrels of whiskey are stored on their side, but they have like a glass front so that you can see how the aging process. There's less and less amount of whiskey in there. So let's just say Redbreast, 27 years. It's got only this much whiskey in that barrel, right? What the staves that are on the outside part that are sitting there the longest, are they drying out while the bottom part, the bottom staves are soaking in more and get?
No, great question, because I've been asked that in a different way of like how full the whiskey is, if it's only up to there, is the rest of the barrel drying out completely, running into problems. It's actually about the internal environment of the sealed cask. So if this has a tap on it, this is all sealed the whole way, like natural, there's no glue, there's no sealants, there's no screws in any of the casks and any of the warehouses that you see around the place. What it is actually the moisture swelling the cask from the inside out. So once that bung is on top, and it's sealed, you've sealed that environment, so even though the whiskey's here, you have the rest of it is full of vapor, the rest of it is full of alcohol fumes, and that is still moisturizing the barrel so it stays swollen. The staves are constantly trying to spring out because the grain is going upwards, so that's what they would naturally want to do. The metal hoops are keeping that pressure on. So when I actually make the smaller ones, you dry them to a shell, so when the whiskey or the wine goes into it, it takes up all that liquid and swells out, and that just holds there. You might get small movement in warehouses, you might get small leak springs between hot weather and cold weather, but that's part of the maturation process because the liquid does need to expand into the wood, and that's actually what you're seeing here on that tide line. It's the whiskey soaking in that deep into the wood, and then there's a transfer pulling the flavours from the oak back into the whiskey, which is colouring it, flavouring it, and doing all those things. But a beautiful display in Midleton explaining the angel share and the evaporation of each cask, but you can see the colours and how it matures along the way. What's super interesting is that's at like a 200 litre size or a 500 litre sherry butt size, and at a 200 litre size you need at least 3 years, 4 or 5 depending what you're into. With the smaller casks, because there's more wood in contact with the spirit, it's a more intense, much quicker introduction of flavours and maturation. So within a couple of days, you notice changes in the small barrels. That'll take months to years in the bigger casks,
Going back to when you first started this out, and you said, okay, this is the trade I'm going to go into. Did you have people around you that thought that this was a viable career?
Oh, that's an interesting question from when I started. No, not at the start. I suppose when I got the job, I didn't tell my family what was going on. I was 20 at the time, was going through different jobs, was putting myself through college, didn't want to bother get anybody's hopes up, going for this trade. But what I found when I was telling people then, it was like, sorry, you're doing what? Like they didn't even remember or recognize the word itself. But when I told my grandmother, I was saying to her like, yeah, I went for this apprenticeship, I'm in this trade, I'm an apprentice cooper now, and she was like, down in Midleton, and I was like, yeah, she goes, you plonker. I goes, what? And she opened a drawer and she had a picture of my great grandfather, who was actually the chief blacksmith in Midleton Distillery 150 years ago. Wow. And I had no idea. It was just that's what I wanted to do. And she was like, oh, look, I didn't need it, thankfully. But to walk back into the place and say, hey, this is actually something different. And my grandmother at the time couldn't believe that this was a viable career. She thought I was going good with my hands. I need a physical job to engage me, so you don't have idle hands make the devil's work kind of thing or whatever. So she knew I was going to the right place, having a good physical labour job. And she even couldn't believe at the time, whoa, this might just be a kind of like, is it ceremonial? Are coopers needed anymore? And the further and further I got into it, and when I started travelling, then I really understood what's going on. Like the reason casks are still here, the reason that there's millions of barrels across the warehouses in Ireland is because of the maturation, because of the Irish whiskey industry, because of the wine industry in Europe. It's the maturation and it's the wood itself, and it's back to necessity and bringing that into the products that people are making, you know. So as I gained, I suppose, knowledge and understanding of what was going on, then I was like, I need to learn absolutely everything that I can about this trade, even the things that I don't need now that aren't pertinent to my job as a repair cooper or fixing barrels or inspecting barrels, but everything that I can about the trade. And the mentors that I found along the way in Scotland and in Spain and America, every single one of them were absolutely delighted to see me, because they thought they're the last generation. They genuinely think retired at 72 years of age, I'm the last of my line, coopering isn't even going on anymore. And then this 21-year-old fella shows up from Ireland with a thick Cork accent going, teach me absolutely everything you know, please, this is what I'm doing for my life. So it was definitely a growth to it, and I got to meet the people that didn't believe it was viable, and everybody's changed their minds as we've gone, you know.
What was your first day like on the bench?
First day on the bench was actually in Scotland. So as I said, the skills base was decimated across the country. So starting off in Scotland was a bigger language barrier than I had in Spain. We're both Celtic people, like the Irish and the Scots, like, and we both have thick accents, but the language barrier of trying to understand each other was like being in a foreign speaking country altogether. But it was cool. I got a year on the benches in an apprentice school in Cambus near Alloa, and it was graft. It was like, I was used to graft. I grew up in building sites and just laying blocks and just labouring for my uncle and my godfather and stuff. But this was real graft. Like, you got to pick up a hammer at 7 o'clock in the morning, start swinging it, and you don't put it down till 3 or 4 o'clock in the day, you know. And that was a wake up call of, oh, my body's not ready for this. I was listening to David Cahan actually about the lifting stones, and he was on about, he went from 74 kg to 104 kg. It took me many years to realise, I need to build a body ready for this work, rather than just trying to keep up with it and breaking your body down over time, you know. So no, it was a wake up call, like, hey, you're in it now, this is go time, like. And it was an amazing year. First day on the bench was as good as the last day on the bench leaving Scotland. Just as exciting constantly, you know.
Is there one technique that was the hardest to master?
I'm thinking the ad straight away, just because it's I have a tool here. This is a video as well, is it? Just in case people are looking at things, I suppose. This is an adze, and it's a curved blade that you swing this way on a cask, the sharp end. Kind of basically, you're always swinging sharp tools or blunt objects towards you. So we're wearing aprons and stuff, but this is definitely one of the ones where you're going to mess it up 1,000 times before you do it right once. You're going to do all the work to that cask, you're going to put a stave in, and then you're going to mess it up by just not using this tool right without experience. You got to take it out, start again. And that was the best way to learn, is get in there, mess it up, and you just get nicer and nicer. So I think one of the videos that I put online was actually using this adze, and it might be like 10 seconds, but it's just clean lines, clean strikes, just this nice rhythm. And I think people that went big because people really kind of saw and felt, that's experience, that's skill, it's every single stroke. And it's every single thing has to be in a rhythm of your day and your body, and then you really start dialing in.
How many coopers would there be in a city? Like, how many coopers would support an entire city at, going back 100 years?
Yeah, like up in the middle of 1800s with 11,000 coopers on benches across the country, different factions, brewery, wet coopering, household coopering. But it was every village, every town, every dockyard. every ship that was coming in, everything on it had to be maintained by coopers. So especially near the cities, especially near the docklands and the merchants' quays and stuff, you would have a lot of cooperages. Then in the cities and the villages, you would have a lot more family cooperages for household coopering and stuff, you know. But like even on Cork docks, there's a place called Firkin Crane, and as far as I know, it was the actual crane that used to lift firkins, which are 40-litre casks, onto ships to be exported in the dairy trade. But there was these firkins that were 40 litres, and there was 6,500 of those being made every single week, just in Cork alone, on the docks to supply the export industry. So again, when it's down to transport and maturation and necessity, it's literally, it's thousands. Every village, every town, it was an absolute necessity, you know?
Yeah. When I grew up right next to a very small little horse farm. And when I remember I was 6, 7 years old. On Mondays, the blacksmith would be there to shoe the horses. Nice. And I used to, as a little kid, I was fascinated by that. And I went there to watch the blacksmith. And that was when I was a little kid. And then we moved away from there. But many years later, probably in my 20s, I was in Ireland, and we went to Bunratty Castle. And in the back there, they have like that whole little village set up. And the smell, I got goosebumps now even talking about this. Mm-hmm. I got the smell of the blacksmith, you know, and that was a smell, it was a distinct smell, and it was a smell I hadn't smelled probably since I was 7 or 8 years old. And it hit me, and I was like, oh my God. So we had to go look at the blacksmith. So what did an old cooperage, what did that sound like? What did that smell like in the old days?
It's funny because I suppose the smell you're talking about is the forge. Like, it's the hot metal, it's the coals, it's the smoke, it's the striking, you know, and it produces, same as a cooperage, produces very distinct smells. Like when I was younger, my father was in the Navy, so those smells for me were diesel and burning engines and that sort of stuff. And my son, who's 6, recognizes the smell of the cooperage when I come home, which is like oak, shavings, dust, whiskey, maybe a bit of sherry on the boots, like, you know, and it's this mix of stuff. And that's really cool that you go through Bunratty and you're getting the smell of the forge, because they do have that running. There's a guy up there in the moment, Owen McBride, and he's forging away in Bunratty Castle. When I was going around collecting, like, I have a lot of tools here on the back. This has taken like 13 years to build and hone in and get the specific tools of what I'm doing, because you can't buy them on Amazon or go into the local co-op and buy them. So I took all my favourite ones and I went to a forge in Cork, which is actually the first forge in Cork City for decades upon decades. And there's 2 lads that are about the same age as me, in their 30s, and they're forging brand new tools for coopers. Literally this one, they made this one, Leaside Forge in Cork City. So we have blacksmiths now again in Cork forging tools for coopers from Cork. So it's this whole circular economy of craft revival. It's pretty cool. With the Bunratty Castle, what's been really cool for us is when I was on about the tankards and the barrels, really thinking a lot of bringing traditional vessels with a purpose, giving people a purpose to have a vessel in their house again, not just something to look at. But when we started up, I didn't ever think that I'd be saying the sentence that I'm up the walls with butter churns. Like, I have the new make churn, so there's an 8-litre double-handed plunge churn gone down to West Cork. They're making butter in it every couple of days now. Bunratty Castle were on in the last couple of weeks, and they have a churn which is called a tumble churn. It's kind of a round barrel without the shape of it, but it has a handle on the side that you turn, and it churns this mechanism inside that turns the butter, or that churns it. But the one they're using, and the Bunratty inside in the castle, show how to make butter with it. But it's an old one and it's leaking, and they keep trying to repair it. And they said, we can't believe that there's actually a cooperage opened up that we can contact. Would you be able to recreate these? They want them like for like, the ones that have been used there for so long. And that's one of the projects that we have on the moment now. So I'm getting the blacksmith in Bunratty Castle to forge the handles and metal mechanisms. He's going to send them down to me. I'm going to recreate their churn, and it's going back up to Bunratty Castle to be making butter every day.
Wow.
So it's cool, man. I also... Sorry,
tell us a little bit about the social custom of visitors churning butter. I've read about that.
Yeah. They're good. That's something I say that I was actually at a medieval festival, in Youghal in Cork only last week with our business in Sean Cooper, and I asked that question to an old lady that was there, very nice. She was looking at this churn that I'll show you in a minute, but I asked her the tradition of churning butter when you visit somebody else's house, is there any truth to it? Because you would go, and when you're a visitor in their house, everybody's always churning, somebody had to be churning. And she said yes, it was a known thing that you would actually nearly be inviting people over. Come on over for a cup of tea and a bit of soda bread or whatever, because when they come over they have to start the churning. So she knew it so much that she actually made a joke about it, and the guy that was standing next to her was in his 80s plus, and he turned around and he had a visceral reaction to seeing the churn. Like everybody else is like, oh, it's amazing, I haven't seen this in ages, but he was like, oh, the churn. Oh my God, every day, who's churning? Get down there and churn. Every day somebody had to be on it. So he remembers as a young fella, his kids, his father, his parents, his uncles, everybody was churning, and at 5 or 6 he had to be in there playing his part in churning as well.
Wow.
It's cool, but like that's the gap, like, you know. It's literally from where we are now, we're talking to people that are in their 80s that remember it when they were an infant, like, you know. That's the gap. It's 80 to 100 years, and I'm trying to get as much information off as many people as possible, get these vessels out of the places that they're in, and get them back into their life, get them back in service, you know.
So you're being asked to repair old ones?
Yes, I'm going to turn this around just so I can show you something. We have something in at the moment which is pretty cool. Can you see this guy?
Yeah.
This is a barrel churn. So there's many different types. It's the plunge one that we saw a minute ago going up and down, but this is one with a handle, its own frame, it has its capacity on the top of it. It can take full capacity is 12 gallons, but the churning capacity is 6 gallons, and if you put in 6 gallons of cream into this, you're going to get out 18 pounds of butter. But this actual vessel, every piece that's on it is original, and it's from a family down in Killagh. Have you heard the song Killagh from a couple of Irish lads called Kingfisher?
Yes.
That townland is 10 minutes down the road, so we're very close to Killagh. We're in East Cork. This barrel churn came from a family in Killagh, and it was in their dairy farm for 4 or 5 generations, churning butter every day. Their family friends came up and saw it at the festival we had the other day, and they can't believe it. So the guys in Deaf Enterprises in Cork restored the frame. This is up here for the restoration of the barrel. It's missing a hoop, it's woodworm. All of these have to be tightened back in. There's 2 brackets here to fix. But this is then going on display in the Butter Museum in Cork for people to come in and look and enjoy, you know. So it's not going back into service in the traditional sense, but it's going back with love and care and on display in the Butter Museum.
Oh, very good.
It's stuff like that, man. It's like each vessel has. We have something over here as well. Sorry. Like each vessel has a story. Again, David Buchanan was on about every stone. They have the story. They have their history, when that started, when they're lifted. This is when they're made, you know. This vessel's story has been going on for 150 years, like. And this one is just beginning, because this was made for a fella called Max Jones down in West Cork. It's a herring cask. So it's actually about 30 litres, and it's for preserving salted fish. You would take a bed of salt on the bottom, then filleted herring on top of that, salt, herring, salt, herring, salt, herring, all the way to the top. And I put a press on the top of it, and it basically presses the moisture and the fish oils out down through this wooden tap. They then collect the fish oils and use it to burn oil lanterns and keep them lighting in the traditional house that they have.
Wow.
So I didn't even know about this vessel existing, what type it was, but very traditional down in West Cork. Max Jones did a bit of research on it. He put on a festival, Sea of Traditions, and he's coming up to collect this Friday, and that is going straight into service, preserving and salting herring fish next week.
Wow.
So
That's
it's like there's things I'm learning every day by people reaching out and saying, this is what we have, this is what we know about it, this is the history we know, what can you do to it? And that's what we're doing. We're just bringing these vessels back to life and back into service, and that's where it started. So when you're asking the question of like, are people coming back to like more handmade stuff, I'm seeing that now, but what it started with is these vessels need to be looked after, and it's my only opportunity to give back to the trade that I'm raising a family on, like, you know, a trade that's looked after me, that's taken me around the world and has given me this life. It's my only opportunity to put all the time into bring back the vessels that people have made before me, you know.
What's the most unusual object you've made or have been been asked to make?
Ooh. Whoa, there's a lot. Funnily enough, there's a lot. There's a lot of yeah. There's some NDAs out there, alright, we can't talk about, which are really, really cool. But one of the funnest things that I've been able to do is experiment with wood types. How wood types become casks, the porosity of it, how they work under tool. That's been a really, really fun experience. I made a couple of casks out of maple, which we were told just will never ever work. They worked fantastically when we got every single piece of stave right, took out the porosity. It took a fair bit of work, but it was really, really fun. One of the coolest ones that I've made recently was a custom order. So there's a lot more whiskey enthusiasts and private whiskey clubs out there than I would have thought. And since we opened the family cooperage, people have been getting in contact and looking for custom casks because they know their profile already. They know that they like sherry, or they know that they like pot stills, or they know that they like this wood type. So a guy came out here one day and we were looking through our wood types. I was showing him the American oak staves, the European sherry staves, and I showed him one of these, which is a French oak ex-wine barrel. So the wine has actually soaked into the wood just like the whiskey does. And he wanted a 20 litre cask, which is a pin, a traditional pin, toasted. So when I was toasting it, the wine and the sugars that were inside it were literally like bubbling up out of it and like caramelizing on the top of it. So I made that cask in full, lovely tapping it. It went away down to his place up the country, and he got back onto me and said, I'm after changing plans and just letting you know, because the second that I smelled the cask when it landed, it's amazing. I'm not putting whiskey into it. I have 20 litres of poitín that he's getting shipped up and he's put in the cask. So there is a barrel. There's a 20 litre pin made out of ex-French oak with red wine, toasted to caramel, filled with poitín and aging poitín in it for the last 3 to 6 months somewhere in this country. And that's one of the most interesting. I just want to see what it is. Is it even poitín anymore? Is it aged poitín? Has it become whiskey? But he got onto me and he said it's like ruby port coming out of it after putting new make poitín into it. So there's really cool things like that that's happening that I didn't even expect. Like, you know, people are coming with their ideas and I get to put my abilities and skills into it.
So when you say whiskey clubs, are these are people that are creating their own whiskey? Like here we have, I have friends that are in whiskey clubs, but they're just guys that go around tasting different whiskeys.
Yes.
So when you say whiskey club, you're talking about people who are actually creating their own whiskey?
Yeah, and like private about it, aren't on social media, aren't going to public tastings. They'd get distilleries in, or they'd get invites to launches and stuff like that. There's a lot more of that going on than I knew, and having this outlet for those guys to say, hey, we want to see what European oak is like on this, but within a couple of weeks, perfect, this is the size cask that you need. And it just lets them explore more. Like there was a group of guys came out and they bought a 2 litre barrel each, a 4 litre barrel each, so they could try their own style at home. And they have a WhatsApp group where he's like, I put rum into it, I put new make spirit into it, I put a 16-year-old this into it, and they keep in contact about it and monitor it themselves. They came back and they got then a 46 litre firkin, so just larger than a firkin, made out of European oak. Out of this, they discovered, here's where we're all meeting. Here's where, as a club, all of our taste profiles are crossing. So let's go back and get a big cask made for the club. Let's put this 16-year-old spirit into it and open it on our 10-year anniversary kind of thing. So yeah, they're buying whiskey. There's some lads making different things, but they're buying whiskey from different distilleries, different age spirits, and trying it out and finishing it in their own casks that are coming from here then.
Can we back up with that just a second? Can you give me what's the actual process from, like, if I wanted to do that, if I said, Killian, set me up with something, I want to create my own barrel of whiskey. Obviously it would be like one of these small ones, right? So what's the time frame for doing something like that, and what would be the first steps to do that?
Absolutely. We have, like, on the website at the moment, the main bread and butter will say are the miniature 2 litre barrels of brass or steel hoops, and then we have the tankards. But then we do custom casks. So basically custom orders, like we were just talking about. You just get in contact with us and we can share our specialty wood list. So we have American oak and European oak, but when we dive deeper, we go into the types of French oak, ex-wine, ex-sherry, even ex-amontillado. So the wood itself has had time being seasoned by another drink, whether that's wine or whiskey or rum or whatever. So we have a lot of, I suppose, selections to choose from. And even kind of madder woods that you wouldn't think would be common and all. There's things like acacia out there in the world. The Japanese have had a long standing tradition of chestnut casks, and chestnut is one of my favourite. But you would then basically go through your profile, see what you like, whether it's sherry or whiskey or pot still, and it'd help you pick out what we think would be the closest to you. If you're here in person, we get to do that very sensorially. Pick up the staves, look at it, smell them, try out a few samples of what's coming out. We pick the wood type, pick your size. It doesn't just have to be 2 litre. We do 2, 5, 10, 20 and 40 litre barrels. You've seen the 2 litre cask. So we have those 2 litre casks. They're very intense. They make an impact very quickly within a couple of days. We have a 10 litre cask here, which is a bit bigger. It gives you a bit more time. It has a mellower influence than the intensity of the small ones. So there's these big variations between sizes and wood type. And that's why I like people getting in contact for the custom orders, so we can kind of talk through their profiles and stuff. This one here was actually me and my wife's wedding barrel from 10 years ago. It's just under 20 litres, and we filled it full of whiskey, and it was gone in the wedding party in about 25 minutes. But me and my son, who's 6 now, he wasn't around at the time of our wedding. We actually took our family business up the country at a craft festival, and we got to open this up together, and me and my son recharred it. We're putting the heads back into it, cleaning it up, and we're going to put red wine back into it, a Rioja. So again, every vessel has a story, and that's what I want people to get, that as soon as it comes into your house, as soon as you have your own barrel, as soon as you put something into it, you're making it unique, because you're aging the spirit or the wine that you put in, but you're also seasoning the wood of the cask. So you take that out when you're happy, bottle it or drink it, and then the next one you put in is being influenced from the fill before it. So it's constantly creating these new cask types. So your neighbour has the same cask, it's not going to be the same type of cask. They're going to have their unique character developed over time.
These smaller casks that you create, those littler ones, that makes the whiskey quicker?
Yeah, like if you put a 200 litres of spirit into a 200 litre barrel, it'll take 3 to 4 years to turn out the whiskey that you're looking for a minimum. With the 2 litre casks, you could put the same type of spirit in and find out in 2 to 3 months the finished product that you're going to have from that wood. Because it's more wood that's in contact with the liquid, and it just has a faster impact, you know.
Does your website show, give those types of instructions?
In terms of how it works?
If somebody wanted to, buy these things and create their own whiskey club.
No, that's what we're getting to in terms of custom orders, and I want the website to be able to, you go into the custom order, drop down menu of your wood type, drop down menu of your char level and stuff like that. We're not there yet, but we do have a broad website that covering those things, and get in contact for custom casks. At the moment, all the information's on the website, as well as omcc.ie is the website, and Instagram is omcc as well. So we have information, we have cask care cards to tell you how to look after it, keep it in service, don't let it dry out, the do's and don'ts really. But definitely something we need to focus on is bridging the information gap of what we're actually doing and what we're creating to what people that buy can actually do. So that's definitely in the next phase of growing the business and the social media and I suppose.
Well, hopefully this is going to put out a little bit more awareness of it as well. How much of the whiskey's final character comes from the spirit, and how much of it comes from the wood itself?
Depends who you ask. If you're talking to a blender, they're going to say something different to a distiller, and a cooper will always tell you at least 60%. But to be fair, blenders and distillers know that more than anybody too, and that it's about the wood type and the cask type, and it is generally said 60% of the influence on the final product comes from the wood itself. I would tend to say more, but again, it's depending who you ask. And it's dependent on the wood type as well. There's so many different levels of tannins and vanillins. Like American oak is known for being very sweet and high caramel, and then you have European oak, which are darker fruit colours. Chestnut is an absolute, it's a brilliant wood. It within a year, what it can do to a spirit is amazing, you know. So I'd say it's a very, very deep rabbit hole. But you know what you said about just getting it out there and getting the business out there and hoping it'll help. It means a lot to us, not just I suppose the Irish connection, but the Irish New York connection with O'Mahony. We found out again with my grandfather being a blacksmith about 4 or 5 years ago. My granduncle gave me a book written by a lady called Mary O'Mahony Lupton, and it was about the O'Mahonys in Skibbereen in West Cork. And we found out reading that book that my great granduncle was a cooper down in Skibbereen in West Cork. His name was Henry O'Mahony. He got on a boat that was paid for his brother who was living in New York. And Henry travelled to New York and started hooping apple barrels in the Big Apple. Yeah, and he wrote that he didn't like the work because it was too easy or mundane compared to the new vessels that he was making, listing the staves, making new churns, making different things. But he went to New York, got the fare paid, started hooping apple barrels. He had to get out of Ireland because of something called the Land League, which is so if you know anything about that, a lot of those lads had to go, but they were in and out, and he got on the boat when he was 17, and they stayed over there. He eventually was on the gunboats in the Mississippi. I'm assuming we won't say what side just in case, but he settled down in Texas, West Texas. So there's a group of O'Mahonys from West Texas that actually settled there, that are direct lineage from the Henry O'Mahony that O'Mahony Craft Cooperage is named after.
What actually happens to the wood when you do that toasting and charring? What's happening there? Is that a chemical process that's affecting?
I would say probably not a chemical process, but what you're doing when you're bending a cask. So like one of the things to make timber move and malleable, you use heat and water, and in coopering it's fire and water. But then the second part of that, as you're bending the cask, you're heating it up and you're basically cooking the wood and starting to transfer the heat into the cask. If you're going to see inside that, it's the char, it's that finish. So it's not just cooking the timber, but you bring it up to the point of combustion. Because what happens at the start of it is the things inside in the wood start breaking down. Tannins, which colours the whiskey, vanillin, which is one of the sweet notes that comes from oak, lignin. You've loads of different compounds, but they're not bioavailable for extraction until you break them down with heat. So when you're bending the cask, you're cooking the timber, but when you're charring the cask, you're making the timber combust, and you're controlling it so the front layer has combusted and is cracked open, like blistered, so the spirit can enter into that tide line like we showed a minute ago.
Okay.
And basically when it's soaked, the timber then is absolutely soaked in whiskey, and between the warm temperatures and the cold temperatures, the liquid is expanding and contracting. It's soaking into the timber, and there's this constant transfer of liquid in and out of the stave, and as it's coming out, it's extracting those compounds, the lignin, vanillin, the tannins, and that's literally what's colouring, flavouring the whiskey over maturation. Vital step. Without it, it's not maturing.
My next question is probably a dumb question. I know they say there's no such thing as a dumb question. But I never quite understood how. What do you call those slats again?
Stave.
Yeah, stave. How is it that you get every stave to have the exact same bend? You know, and I always thought this, especially with boats, like how wooden boats are created with the same exact. How do you do that?
They're two different. Well, the boat is actually usually steam bending and bending it onto a frame. So you steam each plank individually. They're also quarter on white oak usually, and you bend it to the form of the frame of the boat, like the hull that you made. But in coopering, you're actually bending all the staves at the same time. So when you rise a cask, like these aren't bent staves, these are just straight staves. So it's a straight stave vessel. But with a barrel stave, the middle is wider than both ends, but both ends are equally as wide. So that means if every stave is like that, then the top of the barrel is going to be the same circumference as the bottom of the barrel, but the belly or the bilge of the barrel is going to be wider because the staves are. So these staves start off straight, just kind of like that angle over the fire, but as you're heating it, you're putting on more hoops and you're bending all the staves in together into that shape. And you put a hoop on the bottom, and then you have your shell. And pretty much this is your shell. So I've made these out of staves. The middle part is wide. These are equally as narrow. They're different sizes, but once that holds true to every stave, you get the same shape. Again, I used fire and heat to bend that, put this hoop on it as you're pulling and bending these staves in. It's a very delicate process because obviously timber splits if it's not cut the right way, if the grain is going the wrong way, if there's any knots. So you're really doing a lot more inspection of getting the perfect specimens of staves into the cask, so you're not running into problems like that, you know. It's a cool trade, man. All this stuff I learned in the last 13 years by doing it hands-on, working in Kentucky, actually in America, in a cooperage where we were charring 15 barrels at the same time, and you're there with a hose and a pipe and you're controlling the flames, so you're listening to this fire while you're watching the colour of the flame on that fire, and you're literally, it's like popcorn. It's like cooking 15 bags of popcorn at the same time, and you're listening to when the combustion hits that note, and then you're dousing it. So it's such a sensory trade. It's actually really, really fun and engaging, you know.
So before you said that the smaller casks can create the whiskey sooner or quicker. Why is that? What is the process that makes it quicker?
It's a wood to spirit ratio. So if you take a 200 litre cask, which these staves are made of, and you take this entire surface area, but the entire surface area, the inside of the barrel, you will get a metre squared or whatever the calculation is. And that's the amount of surface area, and with the amount of spirit that's in it, that's 200 litres. So the amount of surface area that's from wood contacting spirit is that number. But as you go smaller in cask, even down to a 20 litre, the amount of wood that's in contact with the spirit goes up. So the more wood that you have in contact with the spirit, the more influence it's going to have faster, because it's all just there in contact. So within, like, this is beautiful size for a couple of months, even up to a year, kind of. A firkin size you can do months or years if you want, depending on the type of wine or spirit. But in these smaller 2 litre barrels, the reason we put the taps on them is you'd want to be sampling very regularly and taking notes, because you would be amazed at how quickly that changes. You leave it 2 or 3 days and it's like a whole different whiskey. But because I have my head in the barrel at 7 o'clock in the morning for the last 13 years, I'm smelling whiskey, I'm smelling oak, that sensory experience is quite high. So I like heavy riocas, traditional Irish pot stills, heavy oak influence. So these barrels suit me perfectly, because I can take a whiskey that people like think is very strong on the oak, and I'd even put it in that and get more influence into it to suit my palate. But you can do the same from whether you're on like grain whiskey and Pinot Grigios, or you like pot stills and riocas. You can do so many different things with the same cask because you're developing your own profile, if that makes sense.
And you can ship these to the United States or anywhere?
We do. We ship all over the world. It's actually really cool to say that we have barrels going all over the world at the moment. And tankards, or 1 litre tankards, are quite popular, because once you put it up to your face, you're smelling the inside of the barrel, of the staves, the whiskey soaked in, the beer. It's such a different drinking experience. But yeah, we ship to the States. We've one going to Canada, to the UK. There's a tankard gone to Finland last week. It's happening, like, it's all real. Like, I don't get to talk about it or think about it anymore, or say I'd love to bring this back to the trade, or I'd love to get these vessels. Or we're actually doing it. We're making churns every day. We're sending them all over the world. And yeah, the new makes are going abroad, like the States and Canada and stuff, but the restorations and the butter churns and the vessels coming back out, they're all domestic, obviously, in Ireland. So there's so many cool sides to it, man.
It's so cool. I'm hooked here. I want in.
Good.
Another hobby for me to do.
It's dangerous. I found that even telling myself like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was listening to your podcast and I was like, stop thinking about it. I have to be careful of the rabbit holes, you know. And then I was like, of course you could just go out and lift stones. Of course you could go out and, like, I have a Shillelagh here. Right? The whole time, blackthorn. It was actually given to me by... Go on, get your Shillelagh. Now we're in an Irish Snug, sorry. Very good. This was actually given to me by Owen Reardon. He's an Irish craftsman, woodworker, does TikTok videos and YouTube and stuff. He's very good. But he made this for me. I have another one next door. But as soon as I got this in my hand, only 3 or 4 days went by, and I was listening to Nathan and Irish stick fighting on your podcast, and I was literally looking at this all day. I was like, I have jiu-jitsu tonight, training on the weekend with the small fella. We're in martial arts since we were younger anyway, a lot of my life, and now we're in jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, hey, relax, let's go through the belts in jiu-jitsu first now on that journey before you pick up a stick and go fight. Stick fighting comes later, exactly. I've got time.
It's funny. This isn't the one that I've had. We've always had one in my household since I was a little kid. I remember there was always one sitting in a corner. This isn't the one. I think my father or my mother has the original one, but this one was given to me by my wife's great aunt, who she wasn't from Ireland. Her family was from Ireland. But she was getting up there in age, and she came over our house for Christmas one year, and she came in and she says, Tim, now this is a woman that's never been to Ireland. She's heard all the stories about Ireland, and for us who had never gone to Ireland, I go there a lot, but there's a whole in the United States, there's a lot of people that have never been there that dream of going there, and she was one of those people. And when she handed me this, she said, Tim, I want you to have this. It's from Ireland. It's really from Ireland. The way she said it to me, I took it and I said, I'll keep that forever. Yeah. It meant so much to her to give to me.
It's amazing. I felt that it's amazing that you have that story behind that as well with family, because even when I was in Kentucky, man, people hear the accent and they're straight up, and it's this familiarity, and even people, like you said, I've never been there, but I know how Irish I am, and my grandparents have talked about always keeping our heritage and stuff, and we dreamed to go back one day and stuff. I had a friend, William, who's still in Kentucky, managing a cooperage over there, and he came over for our wedding, and I got to go golfing with him, and it was his first time in Ireland. And it's literally that, man, we get to share our culture, things like this, things like your wife's great aunt, is it? Mm-hmm. Like that, it's so important to her that you understand this is being given to you and look after this piece of heritage, even be a Shillelagh, you know what I mean? It's amazing that people have that reverence for who we are and what we do still,
Oh, it's alive and well. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is I like to and maybe revive it a little bit too, because there was a little bit more, maybe I should say a lot bit more, when I was growing up. A lot of people couldn't go to Ireland. A lot of people just didn't have the money, and listening to my grandmother talk about Ireland, when she came to America, she had never gone back, because they didn't have the money. So growing up in a household, my father had never gone. To me, going to Ireland was the same thing as going to Mars. It's just unobtainable. Like, we didn't think we could ever get there. It's sort of like what you had in your head, and then later on in life, I was 25 years old before I made the trip to Ireland my first time, and now I'm always there.
It has to be some sort of kind of memory thing as well, because the fact that you can't get back, or knowing that it's going to be so hard to return, like that's what was in that book about Henry O'Mahony. Like, they knew, they were saying goodbye, you're going to America, your brother hasn't come back, you need to get out of here. Yes, you're bringing your hammer driver, your trade with you, but this is a goodbye, and that's still going on for generations of one day we should get back there. It's not too long ago, man.
I mean, half of the songs written are all about that. One song I always think of is by Cherish the Ladies. It's actually the guy Don Stiff, I think his last name is. He sings this song called "The Christmas Letter," and it's sad. It's so sad that this mother is her kids are going off to America, and she's never going to see them again ever. Yeah, it's a sad story, but
no, but even you said something there that just sparked something.
Yeah.
It's like these final goodbyes to things, like the song. you have like obviously Irish songs, big tradition. You get a group of us together, you're going to hear us singing from miles away, like, you know. And it's a way that I've definitely learned our heritage. Me and my brothers and my cousins, we grew up singing these rebel songs. We grew up understanding our culture through the songs that were written about every struggle that we've been through as a population, you know. But there's another song, oh, I can't remember the name of it, but very famous Irish song, and it's by trade I was a cooper, lost out to redundancy.
Oh yeah, that I sing that song.
Yeah.
Well, that's the Rare Ould Times.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Lost out to redundancy.
See,
Um,
my
but
house
that's
I fell to progress, my trade a memory.
memory. Do you know what I mean? Like literally, there's a song, such famous Irish song that has the lyrics that the trade that I've been in for the last 13 years of the family coopers that we started. It's a memory. At that time, it's gone. Like Guinness had a ceremony in 1963 of this is the last wooden barrel ever. Say goodbye to coopering in Ireland. It's not just brewery coopering. This is the beginning of the end for it, you know. And it was they made so many things. And what's crazy is I also met people along, like it's almost they want to see or they want to be like the last part of something, you know. And it's like that could stop something reviving, that could stop something coming back up. And the truth is now, there's a generation of us. There's 12 lads across this country that are not just paying their bills and fixing barrels, but raising families off the trade in Ireland again. It's a huge thing. It's in our music, it's in our culture, you know. And it's coming back. And please God, it makes it to a song again where coopering is no longer a memory, you know.
Right. No, it's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah, the last guy that was actually doing this household coopering that we know of was a fella called Ned Gavin, and he retired in before 1980. But before him, he was a sole trader making these casks and stuff. It's been 100 years since this faction of coopering was up and booming and making vessels and stuff. So it means the world to us, man.
Yeah, I think I just hope it stays on track. I know there's a lot of stuff going on right now. In the world.
But you know what you said about food and people experience and technology, and yeah, it's going to get crazy. But what we are seeing is people want to connect with things again. People want to connect with their heritage, their culture, whether that's through vessels, through food, through alcohol, through your own experience as a human, to be able to like that. I literally can't believe I have butter churns that I have to make in this style, in the Bunratty Castle style. That it's not just for, oh, we'd love to look at this. No, we actually need a churn, and we've known that we can get it made, and we've been using this thing for decades. Can you make us as many as possible? So it's this connection to food that's bringing us back, the connection to our heritage as well, you know.
Mm-hmm. How involved is the rest of your family in the cooperage?
Man, I'll be very honest with you. My little man, who is 6 years of age, had his apron on and hammer making noise in the cooperage here before I got down here this morning. So he's grown up with this as part and parcel in his life. He was at the displays, the Heritage Festival that we were at, with his apron on. We were charring this barrel together. Yeah, man, it's a family business. We're all there for each other, you know. And that's what I was saying about Henry O'Mahony and why it's O'Mahony Craft Cooperage. It's the generations before us that have laid it out and done their best for us. It's us who are here now doing it, and please God, it's the generations to come. You know, we're not messing around. It's not something that we're getting into and out of. This is a generational family thing we're bringing back.
I want to share something with you. I had taken a note on probably around the time I first got an iPhone, and you know, it's got the notes section, and it was done in 2012. I took this note. Actually, it was my son, who was 9 years old at the time. He's 23 now. But when he was 9 years old, my wife was going out for the day. And I told him, I said, Liam, let's make a list of what we want to do today. And he said, okay, Dad. And I still have that list. And I want to read that list to you.
Please do.
You know, my wife was out for the whole day, and this was what we were going to do that day. Get a basketball hoop, go out for lunch, have a lacrosse catch, go for a bike ride, go food shopping and make dinner for everyone. Make something out of wood.
Stop.
That was the last thing on his note.
That's a big day.
It's a big day. But that's the mind of a 9-year-old. But the make something out of wood thing is something that I always thought it was just a great thing that he wrote down, because I do feel that there is sort of an inner human thing that making things out of your hands and out of wood is. I'm a little bit of a woodworker myself. I've done finished carpentry. I built my whole bar. I built. I do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Did you get to that task? Did you
We
clear that
did.
list?
We
But
you know
what
we
did you get
we
to the end of it?
whittled something. Something we just
Nice.
whittled out of
That's all that matters. You made something to
wood.
work
Yeah,
together. Like,
yeah.
it's amazing. Where's his little? Oh, I can show what he does actually. So anything from the staves or the barrels, if something doesn't work out, like the wood is too porous or the stave ends up too thin, he actually takes those staves off me and he turns them into incense burners. So he drills
Yeah,
a
you're making
hole.
something out of the stuff that's
Literally, yeah. It was. We're not going to
nothing
do
goes
these.
to waste. Nothing goes.
Nothing goes to waste. And like if these aren't turned into incense burners, he drills 2 holes on them, he sands them down, he brands them with me, he oils them, and he sells them at the little markets we go to as well. So like he's down with his headphones on doing that, working away while I'm over here making barrels, like, and that's how involved he is in it,
And how old is he?
6.
That's terrific.
This guy was standing.
great.
This guy was standing at a stall with me, and we're talking about coopering and the history of it, and we've the miniature barrels and the tankards. And this guy was all questions, talking away to me, which I'm used to. And next thing he kind of started, "Oh, thanks very much," and started walking away. And my son looked at me, 6 years of age, with his apron on. And he goes to your man, "You can buy something too." At 6, like, and your man turns around and he goes, "Oh, sorry, the barrels might just be a bit out of my price range today." He goes, "That's no problem. I'm selling these incense burners for a €10 note." At 6, like he caught him for a
Wow,
view.
that's
It's nice, but yeah.
It's a good salesman.
Yeah, but do you know what? This is normality to him, Tim. We live a very traditional life anyway. Myself, my wife, my small fella. We hunt all the food, or farm all the food that we have. We have a small holding. We do chickens, cows. We do a lot of hunting, deer. All the shavings from the shave horse, making barrels here in the cooperage. If it's not used to smoke our meat or to cook our meat on the barbecue, we actually make tanning baths. And we put the deer hides and the cow hides, and we tan our own leather and make our own stuff here as well.
That's great.
So it's like this trade, the traditional lifestyle. It has this circular economy, so it suits our family so well because of the balance between what we do, the balance between what we love. Like, she's baking soda bread while we're out hunting deer and building barrels and tanning leather. It's a nice life because we are so connected to what we do,
Yeah,
and we're conscious
especially
of it.
with kids. I grew up hunting myself, and here
Yeah.
in New York, it's big. The big thing is white-tailed deer, turkey
Yeah.
hunting, duck hunting, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
what's hunting look like in Ireland? There's not. It's everybody pictures rolling grass fields. I don't elk.
Very like that's actually fallow deer.
Oh,
Have you ever seen
okay.
the Irish elk?
Um,
We don't
You
have
know-
them now anymore. Up to
no,
6,000
you know
years
what?
ago.
I have a
think.
drawing here. You know what?
Yeah.
Hold on one second. I have to
Go
show
on,
this.
yeah.
So a friend of my father's that he grew up with, he's an artist, and he
Mhm.
drew. I have a bunch of drawings that he did in my house, and they're all Irish. Like he's got. I have the Rock of Cashel. I got a bagpiper. I'm a bagpiper, so
Nice.
I have a Celtic cross. There's different things, but this is
Yeah.
my favorite. What I'm going to show you right here, and I always assumed it was. I never looked it up, but I always assumed that it was a fictitious animal. But he calls it the Great Irish Deer, and
Yeah.
this is something I love.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is in fact the Great Irish Elk. Yeah. The descendants. So we don't have them on the landscape anymore. It's actually thought that the Great Irish Elk is the reason why we have Irish wolfhounds. The size of them, the big long legs, the running through the heatherlands and the forest and chasing Irish elk down. It was the biggest elk of all time, the species that they've ever found. There was a guy up the country only in the last couple of years, and he found the connected antlers of an Irish elk.
Really?
As far as I know, they were 6 meters in span.
I
So 6 by
honestly
3,
thought that this
18,
thing was
21
fictitious.
feet. No, it was an Irish elk, literally, because Ireland used to be covered in forestry. oak and elm forests. They used to say a red squirrel could travel from Cork to the top of the country, you know, without touching the ground. So what lived inside there through our mountain ranges and everything was deer. We had red deer, but we had the Irish elk. And I think it was up until about 6,000 years ago, maybe even earlier, that they were on this landscape. But it said that the Irish wolfhound and the only predator that was on the landscape to hunt them down was that, like, and people with Irish wolfhounds. But no, very real animal. There's a guy that pulled, I think it's a 6 meter or 7 meter, like 18 or 21 foot span of antlers, like
Wow.
would fill this entire wall, and they pulled it out of a bog, obviously preserved in the bog. They were doing work on the farm or turbary rights, pulling turf, and they found this, and it's like there's one up in the National Museum of Ireland as well, I think. But no, very, very real. The red deer that we have, which is our only native species of deer in Ireland, is a direct descendant from the Irish elk. They go up to like 220, 230 kilos.
Okay. Now, are
So
those
no,
the
really
ones that
good.
they domesticated as well? Like for, I remember back in the 90s when I was in Ireland, we visited my friend's aunt's house, and that was a time where the mad cow thing got really big, and they got rid of doing cows and they were raising deer. Is that the red deer? Is that what they were doing?
That was,
remember.
I'm guessing it's probably fallow, because we have two other species of deer in Ireland, sika, which is Japanese, and then we have fallow, which are these fellas. That's what I mainly hunt in Munster, Cork, Tipperary, Waterford. They have the big palmated antlers. They even get wider than that. They kind of look like moose antlers with the paddles, like, you know. The only farming that I've seen of deer would be the fallow one for the velvet, and the red deer possibly for the meat, but it's not very common in Ireland at all to be farming deer. We have a wild population that's completely out of control. We have an open season that's running about 8 months of the year now. Like literally, we have an open bag limit. I might drop 20 to 30 animals a year. For our freezers. We
Is
butcher
the
them ourselves.
population that, or is there
Wild.
like
They-
a limited
they
amount
have-
of hunters? Or
Limited amount of hunters, so this is back to heritage. One of the things, I hunt a lot of old land. I hunt a lot of mountain ranges. I'm very lucky to know some very nice farmers who have a lot of land, and some of the land that they own are old English estates, where the land league would have ran the landlords out of, where the Irish people now own the land that the English had indentured Irish servants on. And me, as a cooper, a lowly cooper, caught hunting the king's deer, which is what it was called at one time, I would have been hung, drawn and quartered. And it would have been a public event for the king, you know. So the fact that I get to hunt deer for my family, make a living off coopering, and go live traditionally and hunt a deer on this land to feed my family is a huge thing. I get to enjoy that. I get to hunt what they would have considered their deer and the king's deer on the land that I do, and what would have happened. But because of that culture that was beaten out of us, really, not much venison eating happened for a long time here. People were told they can't hunt. You'll be hung, drawn and quartered if you hunt. It's not your right. You can't hunt rabbits, you know. You can't hunt deer. Goats were a very common food source in Ireland at one time, but people turn their nose up to it now, you know. Whereas we hunt wild goat populations in Ireland, we hunt deer, and that's our mainstay, is the wild game. Our mainstay diet in our household is the Irish wild game that's in this country.
wow, that's really cool.
It is, and like being a lowly cooper, hunting where I hunt, I do regularly see these old artifacts and railings of these old English estates, and I just laugh because, you know,
Well,
this
let
is
me
what
just-
it is.
I want to fix something there. I don't think you should be calling yourself a lowly cooper. Maybe that's what they called them in the old days, but I'm holding you at a much higher level than a lowly cooper.
Okay. Thanks.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh, here, please God, because this is like.
Well, do you see expansion? Do you see, maybe bringing on more coopers, apprentices?
For sure. Yeah, like I'm still in the Irish whiskey industry, so I kind of have my day job there, which I love. I love being a part of, and I love engaging in all of the factions of coopering that I get to. Here is a whole different beast because it is a family cooperage. My cousin, she's in college at the moment, but she's very handy with woodworking and geometry, and the things that she's made, I've seen actually have a bit of uniqueness to them. And she's also of the same bloodline of our great grandfather, who was a blacksmith. So that's what I'd really like to see. I'd like opportunity in the family to come in and look after this trade as well. I'd love to see maybe my cousin, her working here as an intern, or hopefully an apprentice, because it would mean a very different thing. Apprentices now go through the Scottish Coopering Federation. It's just for wet coopering, distillery repair. There is no authority, there is no association on household coopering. And if I'm to bring an apprentice in here, I want to make it a full apprenticeship of you're learning everything from the start to finish, and you're a fully fledged cooper that can go out on your own if you wanted. Even we mightn't be in that world, but that's the level of training that I want to bring back into the faction, and have a real apprenticeship of not just working here and doing that and you're an apprentice. No, this is like from start to finish, the same as it was 100 years ago. You need to be able to do the job, and whether that's my cousin Aoife or whether it's a brother-in-law that's coming in, that's hopefully what I see for the business going forward. Obviously Cody, he's 6, he can do whatever he wants in the world, whether he wants to pick up the hammer and driver, or he wants to go hunt deer for a living, or whatever he wants to do. He'll never have any pressure on him, but it's for him to understand that we have options, and then we have things to do if you want,
That's great. What should people remember about the barrel the next time they drink whiskey?
Do you know what? What's a good one? When the next time you nose whiskey, or the next time you nose wine, remember that it's the oak that you're smelling mostly. It really is. When you put your head into a bottle of whiskey and that smells like, and they put their head into a barrel and they say, that smells like whiskey. It's actually the oak that you're smelling that we associate with whiskey. So even like we're so associated with food, smoking food with oak for years, preserving food, through all of that. It's been part of our sensory experience as humans. So when we associate the smell of whiskey, we should be associating it with oak and with the wood itself, not just whiskey standalone, because without the barrel, you're not getting that whiskey, Let
me tell you something that where my whiskey level learning has, and it's pretty recent. I like Redbreast. I was drinking Redbreast before it even came into the United States. We actually would have to go to Ireland and bring a barrel. We'd bring a bottle back home. But then it eventually came to the United States, and it would always be the 12-year-old or the 15-year-old. Bourbon here, I always drink it with an ice cube in it. But with the Irish whiskey, I was putting ice in it until I started drinking a little bit better whiskey, and my father always said it's got to be neat. It's got to be neat. But I didn't hit that neat stage until much later in life. And then a buddy of mine bought the 27-year-old Redbreast.
Yes. Yep.
And we had it neat, and I took a sip, but I took a sip of it similar to how I would take a sip of bourbon or a sip of anything else with an ice cube in it. And it was a lot stiffer than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be smooth. I went out and bought these types of glasses. I never had this specific glass. So I went out and bought those, and when I'm drinking that 27-year-old now, I put as little whiskey as I can in my mouth at a time, so that I can get all those flavors. Like that's when you can really taste it. If you put too much whiskey in your mouth at one time. Now this I'm not a connoisseur. I'm just telling you how I experienced that particular whiskey and how I would drink it today, if I was having it. But is that something you've experienced?
You're on the ball, because I also think it's a palate development thing, the way we're starting from ice cube, and it has to almost kind of be dulled down as an introduction as you're growing into it. I found the same with myself, and the further I got into the trade, because my sensory experience was growing and growing and growing and being impacted, I actually leaned towards the heavier Riocas, the Grand Reservas, 5 years in a barrel rather than 3 and stuff. And the same with the Redbreast. Redbreast is absolutely up there, one of the best whiskies in the world, one of my favourite. And I'm going to tell you some blasphemy about whiskey drinkers mightn't like this story at all, to be honest. But Redbreast 27, absolute banger, sensory experience. I believe, my opinion is, you're drinking that the right way, because it's meant to be a sensory experience. You're supposed to enjoy it. Same as like a glass of wine. You're not just absolutely throwing it back. You're enjoying it. I love a glass of red wine because it can get deep, it can get complex, you can have that sensory experience. Same at Redbreast 27, the port finish one especially, beautiful. We went on a family hike, me and my aunts and uncles and cousins, down a place in West Cork called Bear Island, where my grandparents were actually from. But we went up a hike up to Martello Tower, and in the bag I brought a bottle of Redbreast 27 and opened it up there. Quite the bottle out to be opening at the top of the mountain, and we realised, well, not a mountain, a hill I suppose, we realised all we had brought was plastic cups. So we had the plastic drinking cups, but we were going to pour it either way.
Out of a solo cup.
Complete blasphemy, because I was telling them about, like, I was walking them through the barrel type, all different types, and it's finished in port or whatever, but then you put it into this plastic cup and all you smell is plastic. I'm like, oh no, I didn't realise you're going to ruin the sensory experience. So no, 100%. The reason that glass that you have works is because it has that bulbous shape on the bottom of it, so the fumes come up and impact you like that. That's why there's different shaped glasses. That's why I believe as well the tankards that we're making, it's that sensory experience. I'd love for you to have one just to smell it, because the second before the beer even hits your mouth, you're having a sensory experience by your nose, and all of the staves, all of the char, the whiskey that's soaked into it, plus the beer interacting it changes that sensory experience to a point I can't explain it. I can't explain this until you have the experience yourself, And it's about that. It's about learning from a tumbler to a flute glass to a plastic cup to a wooden vessel. It's bringing us back to something that we came from, and we're feeling it's sensory, I think,
I think that's really cool. I'm thinking I need to get one of those and put the Irish Snug logo on it.
Do you know what? Yeah. What a great time to say that, because what I'm looking at is a laser engraver that I just set up in the last few days.
There you go.
So we are going customizing heads, either the bottom, we can do the bottom of a tankard, so you can lift it up, you get the logo there, but also what we'd like to do, our logo is on the back here, OMCC, O'Mahony Craft Cooperage. These 2 litres are quite small and the tap is in the way to put logos there, so we might need to increase to the 5 litre or the 10 litre for the customization, but it's 100%. I'd like to see the Irish Snug barrel, I'd love to see the local pubs with their logo, the local rugby club with its logo and its crest and all that. One of the things I've talked about to publicans is bring your own drinking vessel to the pub day, and everyone I've talked to is on board. Not with the 1 litres, they said legally they can't serve that and don't bring it in, but if you can make the pint size tankards, and anyone that brings one in, all we have to do is pour that it's a pint, measure it, and we can pull away in that tankard for the day. So what I'd love to see is tankards coming back into the pub scene too.
That would be great.
And be it customised with Irish Snug on the bottom of them, that'd be great too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the end of the podcast here? I think we hit
amazing. A lot. We covered so much there in an hour and a half or whatever, but I appreciate your time. I'd like and I think I've hit, I only did a few notes there, but deleted all of them because we've hit them, so fair play, lovely conversation. And it doesn't feel like this is an interview, we're having a conversation about cool things we like to talk about.
That's
so
what I try. Obviously there's questions, but I prefer it to be more like we were sitting in a snug, and you're sitting there, and I'm like, I just met you, and for the first time, and I'm like, I wanna learn. So let's sit here, have a beer, and
literally, that's the only thing that's missing now is a point and a drop there, and we have the whole of that covered as well. No, just contrast, man. There's a lot of people have had a big influence on me in my life. Mentors, Brian Tees in Scotland, John Carberry, who's now in Australia. Ian Andrews was a man who was 72 years of age when I met him. He was a retired cooper, still making these miniature barrels, butter churns, gunpowder casks, recreations for ships. He's the guy that taught me a lot of the miniaturized version of the household coopering that I'm doing. There was even a guy, Joe Foley, who was a cooper from Cork, and the day he retired at 65, he could jump from the ground like a box jump up onto a sherry butt, which is like 1.3, 1.5 meters tall at the age of 65. So the guys that I've learned from are like the best coopers in the world I've met are tapped. They're crazy. They're a little bit nuts, like, you know. And if you're box jumping at 65 at 1.3 meters, you're insane. But nice guys. But no, what I suppose the only thing is the contrast. We've talked about the history of where coopering was, where it came from, this 100-year lull of devastation to crafts and heritage across the country. But just the contrast to where we are now, there is 12 lads in the wet coopering trade repairing distillery barrels across the country. There recently some news came out which is super cool. There's a crowd up in KBB, which is Kentucky Bourbon Barrel, Ireland. They have a cooperage in Ireland. They have a cooper up there, Ian Leonard. He's about the same age as myself, and they just rose the first Irish oak casks in Ireland by an Irish cooper in something like a century as well.
Oh, so wow, cool.
You have 12 lads on benches, you have Irish coopers raising Irish casks, you have the first white or household cooperage open in Ireland in over a century. These are all things that are happening now. This is where the trade is now. It's in a good place, it's on the upswing, and I'm very, very excited for the future of coopering again.
I'm really excited for you, and I want to be able to help whatever I can. Hopefully this podcast will help you out, and you know.
Much appreciated, man. And I think you know the ethos behind it, so any support in getting the word out there literally does the best I can for the trade who's looked after me and my family. So it means the world for you to have me on. And Ger Devine was bang on. He was like, you're going to love the podcast, go listen to it, come back. And then he set up and got on, and then you know the boys in the Dublin Fire Brigade, they're nothing but sound, like. So it's really nice to listen to all that stuff. So fair play for what you're doing. Thanks for getting heritage talk, Irish craft tradition out there, man. It's a really good thing that you're doing, so thank you.
Great, Killian. It was great having you on the show, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Super. Slán a bhaile agus gar